Imagine having an AI-powered search engine for candidate profiles from across the open web and even from within your own ATS. Well, that's exactly what HireTool is. HireTool is a global talent platform that serves all recruiters, from small businesses to the world's largest enterprises. And with 750 million plus profiles from over 45 open web sources and channels and 30 plus integration partners, there's literally something for everyone. Recruiters can find more talent with AI sourcing, send unlimited emails, and integrate with your favorite recruitment tools all in one platform. If you're spending hours looking for qualified candidates, underrepresented talent, and updated contact information, then HireTool is probably what you need for your toolkit. HireTool is a platform that helps great recruiters accomplish more every single day. Check them out at hiretool.com.
HR Famous, what's up? It's your hostess with the mostest, and I can say that because I'm the only hostess of the trio. It's JLee, and I'm here with my friends Christian Dunn, our resident life coach, and Tim Sackett. Gentlemen, how are you? Christian Dunn.
I know. I
always like doing good.
Christian
when I hear the name Christian, it automatically ramps up the consulting I provide, JLee. So this will be a serious podcast from my end with multiple learnings.
I was, we all have this the consulting mentality as well in our professional lives. And I was on a consulting gig, and I think I actually texted KD or maybe both of you and said I think it was just KD. And I said hey, I can't talk right now because I'm still in asshole mode, right? Because when you become a consultant, you spend all day in that role with a leadership team or whatever, you become the know-it-all, right? And everyone's looking at you for the answers and blah, blah, blah. And it's hard to leave the building and then turn back into normal Tim Sackett. You still become the asshole know-it-all. My wife won't even talk to me for a couple hours. She's just, find reality again and then call me,
Wow, the know-it-all. So guys, one of my favorite times of every 4 years, but this time every 3 years, every 2 years, actually, depending on how you count it, is coming around. It's almost time for the Olympics. They are coming, and who is ready? Have you guys been watching any of the pre-qualifying and some of that stuff?
My wife watches all of it. She will spend every day, all day watching the Olympics to begin with, but even all the trials, Simone Biles and all the stories that NBC does this great job of they show them do the thing, and then you get a 5-minute story and everyone's crying about some special story. But watching the GOAT has been awesome. And then the swimming thing, because you always have these kids who come through the swimming trials that are 17 or 18, they don't even know any better. They just go and swim fast and they make the Olympics, and no one expected them. No one even knows who they are. They're just hey, it's Mary Jo from Indianapolis. And they have no idea who this person is. And she's the fastest swimmer and she makes the Olympics. And you're this is amazing.
It is amazing. What sport are we looking forward to, Mr. Dunn? Summer Olympics.
So there's two sports that I love that I have to have. I like it all. And obviously I'll watch it. It's great. I think, by the way, Jessica, Netflix usage or Amazon Prime have to be at an all-time low when the Olympics is on. Because, nighttime, people are going to gorge on the Olympics. Such good coverage. Now multiple channels. But to your question, I like two things. I like men's basketball because I love to see the drama when the U.S. team struggles against another country, because it's, supposed to be so dominant, and that talent has spread out across the globe. So I love the drama of that. And then for my money, you could go heptathlon, you could go decathlon, but there's nothing better. I'll use the men's version since I'm a guy and I'm a little more drawn to that. There's nothing better than seeing a 210-pound guy with the lead in the decathlon try and struggle through the 1,500 meter run at the end, roughly the 1 mile, or maybe there's a longer one, but just struggling, just trying to hang on from a points perspective. He looks like every man out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Every man except for you who was doing like the 100 pull-ups. We might need an update at some point of how we're doing with that 100 pull-up regimen.
Do you want it now?
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yes.
What is
It's
how
going
many?
good. I need to do it more than like once a week, but with travel and like getting down to the lake, things like that, it's been once a week, and I'm significantly stronger. So
Wow.
like it's going. I don't struggle with it as much, which means I don't get the tear down in my body, JLee, which means I need to adapt and do something different, right? Maybe instead of groups of 10, maybe I probably do groups of 15 for a while now, and away we go.
What a show off. I'm just trying to transition from push-ups on my knees to push-ups on my feet.
Love it.
Jay,
that's where I'm at.
I like to swim, and I like track and field. I'm a big fan. So I'm a fan and I'm not a fan. So there's some sports in the Olympics that you go, why is this in the Olympics? And you're kind of like, is that really a sport? And then there's like once in a while though, they'll have one where you go, I think I can make the Olympics. And I love watching those and be like, hey, we have spike ball in the Olympics now, or something. They always have some stupid one that you're like, why is this an Olympic sport? And they always have like the test, right? Like every 2 years they test one. And so you're always kind of like, did like some parents get upset that their kid wasn't in the Olympics? And so they just made up this sport. Those are always fun to watch as well, because I think everybody goes, if I spent like 2 solid months doing that, I might have a shot. You're just like, there's no way.
What's your sport, JLee?
Well, so I generally like the Winter Olympics more than the Summer Olympics, and especially as snowboarding was introduced.
Speed
skating. Speed skating also very interesting. But for Summer Olympics, one of the things that I'm very fond of is archery. And little known fact, Koreans are some.
I was going to ask.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to ask what the Koreans are really good at. Archery is one of them.
Archery is one of them, and it's so bizarre to me, but I love it. And it's just like, I love like all these interesting sports that we like don't really think about on a regular day-to-day basis. Handball would be another one where like I can get into this. It's so different and it's so interesting. Archery, handball.
Speaking of Winter Olympics, I was totally as a kid into the biathlon, where they cross country ski and then like stop and shoot a gun. Like,
I know.
What's up with that?
I always thought that wasn't really a sport. It was more like the training for the Soviet Union, right? Like it seemed like they were always the best
like
at
war.
it.
It's like war training for the Soviet Union.
You have to have your gun on your back, and you got to like skate through it. Like it's fascinating.
JLee, handball is the perfect sport that I think every person who played any sport in high school says, oh, I think I could actually play handball and be good, because it's a combination of like soccer and basketball and like all these things. You're like, but it's not any of those. And so you're like, no one's ever played it. So how do you know if these people are really good at handball or not?
Yeah. Well, the Olympics this year will be interesting, and I'm curious to see, what's different about the actual events. Like one of my favorites whether it's winter or summer, is like the procession of all the countries and people parading in together. Certainly, the torch and that whole like all the tradition around that. But like also like when you see the tiny countries marching in with like the massive US, and it's just cool to see like the amount of pride and just the diversity. And so I hope that stuff doesn't get lost. I'm wishing the country of Japan good luck and that it is a safe event, but it'll be interesting. See what happens. Olympics, can't wait. I'm going to be gorging on Olympic coverage every day. I'm ready. So we're going to transition though, because I want to talk about something that actually my company is doing and that other companies are doing that I think is really interesting. So everyone's burnt out. Pandemic is awful. We're all exhausted. We've been working like dogs. And so to combat burnout, something that's been on the rise has been companies doing this, concept of collective time off. So of course, everyone's got vacation, PTO banks, and we want you to take it. Maybe not everyone is taking it, but I think you're seeing a trend increasingly of companies saying, as a collective, we're all going to take a week off, or you're all taking these days days off to help with fighting burnout. So one of the companies recently that I saw was getting some coverage was Bumble, where they said, we're all going to take a week off. Everyone just needs to, take the time off. And this is what we need collectively. Marriott was in the news recently. I actually didn't even realize that we got into the news for this, but my husband sent me the article. Something that we've been doing is for the slew of holidays, starting with Memorial Day and now 4th of July, and then Labor Day, they've all been falling on Fridays or Mondays. So we've been making it 4-day weekends for everyone. And so like personally, I've been like, oh my gosh, for us all to have like that 4-day weekend has been amazing. But I'm curious if you guys think, Chris, I'll start with you. Like, is this a trend that needs to like continue on, the collective time off? Like, I think everyone's commonly done things like around Christmas to New Year's, like that's probably the one that I think has been most common, but extending it like as a on demand because people are burnt out, or like to bolster around other holidays, I think is interesting. So I'm curious if we think this is a trend that is here to stay.
I think it sounds cool, JLee, and I can't argue with it. I think it comes from a unique position of privilege for the companies that do it. And let me tell you what I mean. I would tell you that I don't know much about Bumble. I'm assuming they're not publicly traded. I'm assuming that they're like in their Series B round or whatever. They're burning other people's money, and it can be part of the brand. By the way, I think it's an interesting thing, and I'm like for people taking time off. I think when you go to collective weeks, you either have to be a small company. And when I say privilege, which is a loaded word these days, what I mean is you don't have to be profitable. And maybe you have a type of business where you can shut it all down for the most part and set that expectation with your clients. Most of us don't have that capability. And I think that's just kind of where I come from. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I'm also incredibly skeptical of the privilege that has to be in place for a company to do that.
We see a lot of companies in Michigan because we have such crappy weather that starting like June 1st until Labor Day. So Memorial Day to Labor Day, they do the half day Fridays or all Fridays, just for that time period. Right. And then what they do is they usually pick up like an hour. So they'll go Monday through Thursday, they work 9-hour days or something. And then they'll take Fridays off or whatever, right, through the summer. And and then also the auto industry traditionally has taken 2 weeks off at the beginning of July. So that incorporates the July 4th holiday. Plus in Michigan, which, that's where all these, the big three were headquartered. It's really the perfect time of year. And so everybody would just get out of Detroit and then go up north and do vacations. Now, they also use that as model year changeover for plants. And so not everybody was off, right? The plants literally were going crazy. Now, all the workers were out of there, but then they were changing over tooling and all this other stuff during that time. And so, I do think there's value, in doing that. To me, though, the only value is if you're also going to shut off email and all of this stuff. Because, Jay, we all know, when's the last time you guys really were on vacation that you never saw your email? Like for a full day?
Right. I don't actually know.
I can't either. I don't remember either.
Yeah. And how often do any of us really put on like an out of office response when we are going to be out of the office? That there's like
Never.
Another factor there.
You're weak if you put on an out of office response.
It's rare that I do, but actually.
No, I'm just kidding.
This summer, I am planning on putting that out of
right
office
now.
response on. I know. But Chris, I think the privilege comment is definitely interesting because I'll share even like with, our company, like clearly we've got like thousands of hotels around the world and it's a 24-hour operation. And so us doing a 4-day holiday, 4-day weekend holiday as like a benefit or to combat with issues of burnout, like we can't extend that to everyone. Right. And so this is actually a controversy for us all the time around like what kind of benefits do you give your white collar workers, those people in the glass tower, the corporate people versus the hotels? And we struggle with it. Like we struggle to treat them differently differently or treat ourselves differently from those in the hotels, because like the issue of privilege definitely comes up. But I think what's interesting is like also your point around like, like, can you afford to do this, and who has like the deep enough pockets or like the state of their business is such that they can afford to do it. There's like this cost benefit analysis that I wonder, like, if you guys had to play devil's advocate and say, okay, maybe there is a cost benefit analysis here around like the cost of not doing these things. Like, I think that's what we actually had to grapple with, is what is the price we pay if we don't do something like this and we don't take a major stand like this for our people. And so like, there's got to be ways to like make the argument.
Hey, everybody. I'm Lori Rudiman. What are you doing? Working? Nah, you're listening to a podcast about work, and that barely counts. So while you're at it, check out my show, Punk Rock HR, now on the Work Defined Network. We chat with smart people about work, power, politics, and money. Are we succeeding? Are we fixing work? Probably not. Work still sucks, but tune in for some fun, a little nonsense, and a fresh take on how to fix work once and for all.
So JLee, they're all good points, but remember the initial argument is total shutdown, like the collective, right? And we're all going away. So I think like your company, it's good that you struggle with these things because you've got like all these different levels of operations, right? You've got a big corporate office. I'm assuming you have people regional, and then you have people like actually in the hotels. You can't shut down. You have to think about what that messaging means when you do things, because people will be working. So it's not a collective thing. Maybe for a specific unit it is. And I think you're right to struggle with that. The other thing I would tell you, and again, I have to emphasize, like, I don't hate anybody for doing the collective, like, we're gone for a week. I think, there's also, just because that's out there, we talked about leadership clickbait. There was another word for it that I'm going to use because we got like criticized for it, but who cares? But I'm going to call it
one person stopped listening to us.
I mean, I'm sure there were other people that thought that, which I struggle with that. So the leadership clickbait side of this is that to a certain extent, your virtue signaling, if you're a small company like Bumble and you do the collective shutdown and you have your PR machine send it out to say, look how progressive our culture is and our people practices are. That's virtual signaling, because not everybody has the opportunity to do that, right? And there's this messaging that goes with that. I think if you can do it, it's great. And I think the smaller the company and the type of business, you can do it. I think it makes total sense. But comparing, like, for example, my company versus Bumble, because they offer it and we don't right now, like, I'm not really like, I think every situation's different. I think there's some signaling going on.
You went to virtue signaling, but so like, Tim, though, is that like a recruiting? I wonder if this is like an attractor, like from a recruiting perspective, right?
When I was in retail, we actually had this. And what happens in retail is you have so much internal mobility up that you get people in your corporate setting that all came out of the stores, right? So they all came out of like running stores, working in stores. And so when you talk about like paid holidays or time off, and like the big one is the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, biggest day of the year, we had leaders that were in position. They had started as a cashier and worked all their way up. Now there's the CEO, and God damn it, every single person in the company is going to be working Black Friday. Like, I was in HR working in a corporate office on Black Friday. I would go in there and twiddle my thumbs, right? There was nothing to do because you weren't going to ask anybody in the stores. Like, this was the busiest day of the year. You weren't going to ask for anything. So you were just basically catching up on paperwork, blah, blah, blah. Until we got a new CEO that came out of retail, and he asked the question, well, why the hell are we treating people that would never work on the day after, making them work? Like, how is that going to be an attraction for IT, for accounting, for finance, for people that we truly needed when their competition for that same position is going, oh no, you can have that time off. And it was the first time somebody kind of called them out on their own kind of BS, which is just because somebody has a position where they have to work on Black Friday doesn't mean they have to be treated the same, or that somebody else that doesn't have to should be treated the same as that person. Now, like I think was it Delta Airlines did the thing where they said to their salaried workforce, hey, we need help right in our airport lounges. If you can come take a shift, that would be awesome till we can get fully staffed. This would be great. We would ask the same thing, right, of our salaried staff. If you want to go into a store and you can find a store that needs your help, that they will give you something specifically to do. Don't get in the way. Don't screw up their operations that day. But if there's something you can do that you can help, hey, we would love to have you there. By the way, you don't have to, but if you want to. And there was a lot of us that would go out to the stores and work a shift, right? But I think that becomes the difference, that so often we get stuck in this mentality that we have to treat everybody exactly the same. And you're like, no, you don't, not from a recruiting standpoint.
I love that. I love the idea of getting the corporate folks out into like the front line, but you're right. You can't get in the way. Like, don't muck things up. But I mean, living that life and walking in those shoes, love
Katie,
it.
JLee, Katie loves Applebee stories. When I would go in the restaurants at Applebee's when I was in HR and it was during like a lunch or dinner rush, I literally would just jump on the dish machine and wash dishes. It was like me and like some 16-year-old kid. And I'm like, this is the only like position I can be in where I will not be in the way, just washing dishes.
Don't you think? I think you would make an amazing hostess, like greeting people and welcoming them in. Like you might like give them.
There's a whole process of that as well. And like, I just don't want to jump in. Like I can jump in and wash dishes. I can't jump in on, I could cook, but I couldn't jump in on a really busy time and cook or whatever. Right. The one time I tried to expo, I spilled a meal all over me, so it's like, screw that.
Hey, Jay, real quick. I saw a kind of a friend of the show, Mark Steltzner, and it's IA is the company he runs. He lives in Nashville. I saw I think a tweet from him that they are doing like a company wide. What's the term for this again, JLee? Doing a company wide shutdown for a week.
Collective time off. Well,
so collective time off. So I don't know all the details at IA, but he's doing a collective time off. And he said, one of the reasons we're doing this is because smaller company, by the way, consulting is kind of their business. He said, we're really bad, like at taking time off. Right. So I think that's a great example. I don't want to say that I'm against it for everyone. I just don't think it's automatically like a big deal and that everybody should be compared to that. But for Mark's company, they're taking a week off. It's a consulting business. It's a great company, but it's a fairly small company in consulting. And he's got a great reason. He's like, people don't take enough time off. So we're shutting everything down and everybody is like unlocking and we're going to communicate because we have a business that can do that. I think that's perfect. I think that's a great idea. I just like the broader concept. Hashtag it depends.
Hashtag it depends. We should see who's using that hashtag. I like it. It's an interesting discussion though. Like I think more ideas for how to combat burnout and issues of the like are interesting. We'll save it for another day. But the other thing I was thinking about is like, how does this start to affect issues around compressed work weeks? And can that become a thing? Only certain kinds of, environments will that maybe work? I don't know. The other thing I wanted to pivot and talk about is not a light topic, potentially not a light one, but I want to keep it productive and maybe get into the mode of some problem solving and ideation. So I think a lot of folks, including us, have been seeing headlines and some data and stats around the state of women in the workforce. And I think in the age of this pandemic, we've seen a lot of women who have left the workforce, maybe not always because of their own choosing, maybe often not because of their choosing. But, as a lot of companies are opening back up, as the economy is turning, as certain maybe subsidies are starting to subside, I think one of the things that's starting to come about is that there's some concern that maybe some women who left just might not come back, and that's not going to be an option. And it's, as a woman, I think that's an, potentially concerning trend that we might need to pay a lot of attention to, especially when we already have issues around pay equity and things of that sort because of, mere fact of being a woman and out of the workforce to give birth and do those kinds of things. And so I wanted to talk about like productive responses to like, if we have indeed challenges with women, maybe not rejoining the workforce, like, what are we going to do about this? Like, kind of freaks me out. And Tim, your eyes are big.
No, it's a real issue. I think the last stat I saw was that there was 2 million women that still have not returned to work that were working pre-pandemic to currently, right? So the big risk is like, hey, wait a minute, what happened? And then you start to hear the stories, and a lot of it is families that have come together and figured out, you know what, during the pandemic, we were all kind of stuck in our houses and we figured out ways to spend less money, and we were homeschooling our kids. And like, we thought like, you know what, the world's better if we do that, but no judgment. Hey, if that works for you, great, figure that out. Because I've also heard like all these theories of how do we get to the point where both parents in a home were starting. Remember, like, again, go back to like the 40s and 50s, like post WW2, like, you know what, one person in the family could work. Obviously it was usually a male, right? And they could have a wife and a couple of kids and a house and a car and, good middle-class suburb, blah, blah, blah. And everything worked out just fine. All the bills were being paid. Kids were going to college. America was great, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, like, we have like this, like the movement, for, females to get into the workforce. And all of a sudden now we have to have both parents working, and we still can't afford college. So somehow along the way, right, I think we've consumed our way up to this level that it's really hard to sustain without both parents working. Now, again, we're not talking about parents only, right? We're just talking about women in general, which I think is a concern, because to me, how we fix this is you have to be able to treat women like adults. This is really all employees, but this is specifically to women because they take on so much of the childcare, and give them the flexibility to actually do the work when they can do the work and know that they're going to take care of the work. And they also then can work around a schedule that works for them and their family. And you're going to get really productive people. And I have, a recruiter, stay-at-home mom, working for me now. That's our top recruiter. And she just said, like, Tim, like, I don't want to come back to work. Like, I want to just stay at home. I want to keep working, but I don't want to come in the office. And we're like, yeah, like you've proven yourself. You do it, right? And keep doing what you got to do. By the way, I never once asked her how many hours a week she works. She could work 10 hours for all I know. I don't know. She just kills it. So I'm assuming she's working enough to kill it. And then I could care less after that. But that's not normal, right, Katie? Like, so often we see leaders that want to go, no, we're putting software on your computer so we know when you log in and log out. And we have this mentality that everyone's going to take advantage of us. And yet when you have really great female people working and producing for you, you have to probably give them more freedom and flexibility, not try to rope it in, right?
So I'm hearing flexibility. I'm hearing a focus on results. I love them both. Chris reacts because, like the space we're in of HR and recruiting, I mean, there are a lot of women who tend to be in this space. And so I don't know if you guys are seeing it, within your own companies, but your reaction and just other ideas beyond flexibility and results, a focus on the results, which I love both.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I would tell you is we can't solve this problem on our own as recruiting and HR leaders inside a company. There has to be, like, in order to really engage this segment of the candidate space, there's going to have to be a plan. So a couple of things come to mind. We talk all the time about DEI. And if you really believe this, and by the way, it's true, a couple of the best hires we've ever made at Kinetics were people re-entering the workforce after significant periods of time away from corporate America. So if you really want to engage people that are like that or have not returned to work after a break from COVID, you have to have a plan. How do you get a plan? Well, you start tracking how many of those people you have in pipelines and how many of those types of people you hire. And JLee, I think the other thing I would say is we're really bad at this. We're really bad at offering broad flexibility. Tim can do it like because he knows someone. We can do it because we lucked upon somebody in a recruiting funnel, right? And you're open enough on an anecdotal basis to make the plan work. And these, people like the people, especially with the moms with childcare responsibilities that left the workforce, hesitant to come back for a variety of reasons. I really think there's a space. I know there's a couple of agencies out there like this. You really need to pay the money and go to experts that are trying to aggregate candidate pools. And then you have to be ready for it. You have to provide the training. You have to provide the flexibility. You have to provide the job sharing that might be required on that, the fractional jobs that you're willing to do. It's a lot of work. And the reason that most people don't do it is because it's too complicated and they don't know how to engage that marketplace in a very specific way, right? So those are my ideas, right? I think you've got to measure it and you got to go get it. But man, what a powerful like segment. Probably one of the biggest untapped like segments out there.
Totally. And I love that you bring up job sharing because it actually reminds me of, it was my second HR job that I had. And so this was like, I don't know how many years ago, but I remember how progressive it was that there were these two HR business partners that job shared. They were both moms and I had never seen it before. And they were like the biggest champions and advocates for how do we as two moms split this job, make it work and job share. And it was just so amazing seeing how they balanced it with each other, made it work, made it seamless. And so more of that. But I think, Chris, you're right also about like, this is bigger than just like a company. Like one of the things that I've seen out there is that there's some coalitions starting to come together of big companies who are saying like, we need to solve for this on a like systemic level. And some of this will involve lobbying and some of this will result in things, being put in front of Congress that's probably going to, cost us a lot of money as taxpayers, but that there is probably a more like systemic issue that needs to be addressed here around like, why is the cost of caregiving, whether it's children or parents, because I think it's like both that a lot of people are grappling with, like, why is it so expensive? Like, if I just think about cost of childcare or cost of like after school care, before school care, like that stuff is not cheap. And in certain markets, like the DC metro market, like I don't even want to tell you guys how much it costs to send kids to daycare. Like it is expensive. And these are, the reasons why a lot of people are not, going back is because it's just, less expensive. And then safety is a whole other issue to, maybe not opt back into the workplace. And so getting companies to band together, working with the government to figure out how do we solve for some of these broader issues is got to be part of it. Like, a single company can only make so much traction on some of this.
Yeah, Jay, my brother-in-law is a full-time math teacher in the Dallas Fort Worth area. When they had 3 kids, because his wife is a chiropractor, when they had 3 kids and had to put him in daycare, he literally, his take-home pay after paying daycare for the year was around between $10,000 and $15,000. He was working all year for $10,000 to $15,000.
Yeah.
And so we would always
I know how much we spent on daycare for our 2 sons because my wife was in the workforce at that point. And I know to the dollar, like how much we spend. It's outrageous.
It's a small fortune. Yeah.
It is a small fortune. And it's to the point where like when Una finally went to kindergarten this year, I was like, it's like we got a pay increase. And when I get that next kid out of daycare, my gosh, like I'm going to feel rich. I am buying myself something. Actually, you know what we're going to buy is we talked about this. Yes. Like the Tesla last night, actually, I think the Tesla deposit went into the books. So
what's the model? What's the model you're going to get? A 3 and X? What are you getting?
No, it's the Y, and I don't care. I'm like, do whatever you want as long as I still get to park in the garage. Like, figure out how to plug that thing in. Like, as long as I can still park in the garage, that's all I care about. You can get your Y, which she's never going to get for months because there's a back order and on that. So we need the Christian Dunn second generation to get themselves like through school, get those internships wrapped up, like get yourself into the automotive space with your electrical engineering focus so that we can do this faster, smarter, because Mr. Bobby J needs his Tesla, apparently.
It's Tesla. Absolutely.
Tesla. Absolutely. Well, actually, what we need is for that Toyota company to come out with their fully electric car, because that's what we know Chris is waiting for.
From your lips to God's ears, Jessica.
Let's hope. Well, guys, this has been a stimulating and interesting conversation, wide ranging, starting from, I was going to say skeet shooting. It was archery. Maybe we touched on skeet shooting, all the way to we got to do something about childcare. But as always, it's a pleasure chatting with you gentlemen. And for all of our friends out there listening, thanks for tuning in. That's another episode of HR Famous. I'm Jessica Lee. These gentlemen are Tim Sackett and Christian Dunn, and we're out.